Hello, my name is David Daza. I'm a co-host of the radio program in Orlando, Florida, La Opinión de Orlando. We're going to talk about today about the cosmology of Hebrew people, those who wrote the Genesis. This chapter was written about 3,000 years ago, give or take. And there was a science back in the day, and that science was inherited from the Babylonians, that they believed that the universe was water. So the whole earth was surrounded by water. And as I'm going to show you in this graph, we can see the cosmology. In this graph, we have the earth in this area here, and we have the heavens. And that's what Genesis is going to talk about, the creation of the heavens and the earth. This is the heavens, and this is the earth. But everything else beyond it is water. All of this is water. All of this is water. And that's what they thought that when they opened the compartments of the earth and the compartments of heaven, then the water will flood the earth. And that's what is described in Genesis. It's described that when the compartments were opened, not only of the heavens, but also of the earth, then the earth was flooded, and it was a universal flood. This is the science that the author relayed back in the day. They believed that the whole earth was surrounded by water, and the universe was water. As the text says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. The Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And the reason why he says that it was formless and it was empty is because it wasn't created yet. It was just water. And then the Spirit of the Lord was hovering, or it was like the text says basically as it was like a whirly wind. It was moving the waters. It was steering the water to create the space, that bubble, if you want to call it that way, of air, where the heavens are being created. And in verse 3, it tells us that God said, "Let there be light." And what is puzzling is it's talking about light before the sun was created. So what we're talking about this, maybe the reason why it's talking about the light is to differentiate it to say how to divide those days, because in the Hebrew belief, the evening and the morning, then that becomes a day. So there was no sun. So how do you differentiate the day from another day? Because it's talking about the first day of creation. He says, "Let it be light," and there was light. God saw the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. So in the beginning, in the first day of creation, God was steering the waters of the universe. And then from steering the waters begins the process of creation of what says in verse 1, he created the heavens and the earth. So from that point, where he says, "Let it be light," but there was no sun. So what light is he talking about? I believe that it was to be able to differentiate the different days of creation. So it was the first day. On verse 6, it says, God said, "Let it be a vault between the waters to separate waters from water." So now in this day, on the second day, he's talking about the creation of the heavens. The creation of that expanse between waters and waters. The creation of that space where the clouds are. When we step outside and we see the sky, that's what he's creating. And that's what he mentions in verse 1, the creation of the heavens and the earth. But at this, in verse 6, he's talking about the heavens. And God said, "Let it be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vaults and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. So in the first day of creation, God created the light. On the second day of creation, the heavens. And now we're going to go to verse 9. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let the dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land. The gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Let's go back to the graph. We have the water. Remember, everything is water. In the first day of creation, he created he's beginning to stir the waters for the second day where the sky would be created. But when he's steering the water, he's already said that let it be light. So the light is being created in that day. But remember, the sun is not created yet. So what light are we talking about? I believe that it was the author way of being able to differentiate the different days. So we have the earth here being created, and then the sky, the firmament, the expanse between the heavens from above and the heavens from below. And when we go back to the text, we can say the verse 10, when the land is being created. Of course, in systematic theology, where the apologetics are explaining the different systems of what is trying to communicate. But if we go to the literal reading of this text, it's basically telling us that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. It's so simple, so easy to understand. And then he begins to create the sky, the heavens, and then he's creating now the earth, the land. On verse 11, then God said, let the land produce vegetation. And this is interesting because photosynthesis is needed for the vegetation to grow, to multiply, to live, basically. But the sun was not created yet. So that was the cosmology back in the day. They didn't understand about this process. So that's what they believed. That was their science. So the author, the writer, is not lying to us. He's just communicating what the writer believed. He's communicating what the culture in those days, that's what they believe, and that's what they're communicating to us. So it's very simple to see that in verse 11, when he's talking about the vegetation being produced, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit and seed in it, according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. It's interesting how the sun is not created yet. Again, they just didn't understand this process of vegetation. The sun is needed in that process, but it's not there yet. In verse 4, we can see that God said, let there be lights in the vault. And it's obvious that we're talking about the sun here. We're going to go back to the raft, where you can see the sun being created now in the fourth day. And this is belief in those days that the sun moved inside the firmament, inside the heavens. That's why for so long, our science, they believed that the earth was flat, basically, and that the sun moved in the atmosphere, or that the earth was the center of the universe. That's what it was believed back in the day. And that's the reason why the Hebrews, as well as the Babylonians, they believed that the stars, the moon, and the sun, they move around inside the firmament, not outside, inside the firmament. And this is problematic for me anyways. We're trying to understand it a different way. We try to interpret it in a different way. But I think we have to let the text say what the text is saying. And this is so obvious. Let me back to the text. What it says in verse 14, and God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the fourth day. As we understand it in science, we know that the moon does not produce light. It doesn't have light in itself. is reflected light from the sun. And the stars, they didn't understand what the stars were. I mean, they're like suns that are far, far, far away. So there's no way that the stars are inside the atmosphere or the heavens as is described here in Genesis. In verse 20, it's telling us, God said, let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems and that moves about in it according to their kind, and every winged bird according to his kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in numbers, and fill the water in the sea, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening, and there was morning the fifth day. And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to his kind. And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, and livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they might rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them male and female. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground. Everything that has the breath of life in it, he gave every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all he had made, and it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the sixth day. There are a couple of things I want to talk about in these verses that we have read. In verse 27, it says that God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. The word for God here is Elohim, which is plural. And it's interesting how it says that he, basically what it's saying, that God's created mankind in their image, and he created them male and female. It's interesting that back in the day, there was this belief, was a female image of God as well. It wasn't just what happened in the future of monotheism. It was different type of belief of polytheism. You have the image of God, and this text says it clearly. So that's why we have to read it literally. So God created mankind in his own image. Elohim, that's a plural name of God. In the image of Elohim, he created them. He created them male and female. He created them. It's very interesting. Another thing that I wanted to mention about the vegetation, the fruits, and they were created for food for the living creatures, for men and for all kinds of creatures that move along the ground. So it's giving us the impression that they didn't have to eat each other. So later on, we're going to find out that sin came into the picture. But it's interesting how it's talking about basically all the creatures on the earth. They were not omnivorous. So it's interesting. Out of this text, what I want to make sure to go into this graph where we can see what the Hebrew, what the writers of the Bible of Genesis 1 believed. And that was the science of those days. That's what they believed, that the whole globe was surrounded by water. And then the sun, the moon, and the stars, they move along the firmament, the sky that he said he was going to create on verse 1, when he says God created the heavens and the earth. And then basically what we can say is that this is how he created the heavens and the earth. And he moved in the waters, whirlwind of God, created this expanse, this sky, this bubble of air. And from that bubble of air, then he created the ground. He allowed the ground to surface. And then you have this picture, as you see it here in this graph, of everything being water. Everything outside of this globe is water. You have the chambers of heaven up here, as they believe, right? And then, but you have the moon, the stars, and the sun that move along the atmosphere of the earth. And then you have the ground, and you have Sheol. Sheol being the grave, the place of emptiness. And then you have the pillars of the earth right here, but everything is water. That's basically what the text is telling us. And he's telling us that he created man in his own image, male and female. And the word Elohim is plural. So we're talking about a plurality of God creating male and female. And then we have a situation in the first week of creation where animals didn't eat each other. They all eat fruits and vegetables, and that was the purpose of God. But this is the way they believe. This is what the text is telling us. And when we continue to read, we're going to see another creation, another version of creation. It's interesting. It's amazing. My name is David Daza, and then I leave you with this text. Until next time.